Well, welcome everyone to our garden focaccia class here at the Englewood Community Kitchens in Englewood, and I welcome you guys to learn how to make some delicious, healthy garden bread. So this recipe that we're going to do today was an inspiration, and the recipe was adopted from King Arthur flour, and I'll just show you a picture of the garden focaccia bread that I thought was pretty fantastic. It allows you to use vegetables that your parents or you may have in your home. It's a great way to get your veggies in. So I made one earlier today, as LaQuanda just showed you. This is my version of the garden focaccia bread that we're going to be making today. I'll demo. And also, in addition to that, I also made a herb focaccia bread. This was made with some fresh basil, fresh oregano, and fresh, what did you give me? Oregano, basil, and other Italian herbs. So you can see that the bread can be modified or variations to accommodate what you have at hand. So I'm going to remove this from the table because you're going to get to sample this at the end of the class, and we're going to get a chance to make our own bread. But before we start, just real quickly, I want to show you some of the fresh vegetables and herbs from the Growing Home farm stand or farmer's market. And LaQuanda can tell you a little bit about the Growing Home market real quick.
So we are the first USDA certified organic farm. Everything that we grow is here located in Englewood. We do everything by hand. So I just brought in a few items from the farm itself, which we have our summer squash sash, our zucchini. Yay! We have some fresh herbs as well. We also have our fresh radishes, which we will try on a sandwich today. And then we also have a variety of our cherry tomatoes, as well as we have some onions with the top still on, and then these are the tops from our radishes themselves.
So feel free to change up any vegetables that you may have at home or in your refrigerator, on your countertop. This is just a sample of what we're doing today. And feel free to touch and feel, and if you have any questions, we can demonstrate that. And then what I do have today is that we're going to be making our own garden focaccia. So I have pre-cut some of the vegetables that LaQuanda shared with you. These are cherry tomatoes that are sliced. We also have some organic bell peppers. I have the yellow and green, some julienne carrots. This is the onion. We also have the zucchini and squash, in which you can be creative because it doesn't have to be in the form that it's in. I took a cookie cutter, a flour cookie cutter, and cut out the center of the zucchini and the squash as well. So what it does, though, it allows you to have a nice flower shape. And then I took another cutter and cut out the center. So you can be as creative as you want. Use whatever cookie cutters you have or whatever object you have to make them. The green onions that LaQuanda mentioned to you, I actually took them and used the green portion and just nicely cut them into strips, so this can be like our green for the garden. And so we're going to create this in a minute. We're just going to move it over to the side. But the most important part, you can leave it there, so they can see it on the camera. So the most important part, we're going to show you how to make bread. Focaccia bread is a very basic, simple, I call it fail-proof bread that you can make. So you don't have to worry about it. Did I mess it up? Did I do wrong or anything like that? So to get started, we're just going to use a regular bowl, and the recipe will be provided, but what I do have is 1 cup of room temperature water. And again, you want the water to be warm or room temperature, not hot, not over 110 degrees. So we have water in our bowl. I'm just going to put some gloves on real quick, guys, because I'm going to be getting my hands mixed up in the flour and the yeast and the water. Has anyone made bread before in class? No?
It's my first time too.
First time? Well, welcome guys to your first time in making bread. I think there's one person that has made bread in the back before, so welcome, welcome, welcome. But this you can do at home. You can make this for your family, especially if you don't have time to go to the grocery store, buy a loaf of bread. We're going to show you how you can make the bread, not only use it to eat it by itself, but make a sandwich out of it. and also some variations that can go on top. So we're going to start with our cup of, in this recipe, I'm actually doubling the recipe that you have. So I have water. Inside of the bowl, you always want to take your yeast, and I have it pre-measured here. We're going to sprinkle some yeast inside. In addition to that, I have some sugar. You can use sugar or honey. This is just a little sweetener. Also, the sugar is food for the yeast too. It's going to help the yeast grow or rise. And I'll show you that process in a minute. And typically you add 1 or 2 teaspoons of sugar to the water and yeast depending upon your recipe. So you have this combination of yeast, water, and sugar. A lot of recipes ask for salt. At this point, you don't want to add salt to your yeast and water mixture because salt will, salt will not activate your yeast or it will rise. So stay away from the salt right now. And so what we're going to do is go from here. Once we do this, the yeast needs about 5 to 10 minutes to start getting bubbly, getting happy, and rise. And that's actually going to make your bread rise. So what I usually do is cover this with some saran wrap, or you can take a towel and cover it, and then you kind of want to put it in a warm place. So I'll move it, to the side so it can do its thing. So what I did, we're going to move this behind here real quick. And what I did earlier before everyone arrived, I actually took the yeast, took the water, and I'll show it to you, the water, the yeast, and the
Can you all see
sugar.
that?
Oh, you can take it around.
I'll take it.
And you can see the difference in how it's now bubbly, and you can smell the yeast. It smells good.
It's mostly
It smells good.
See how it looks when the yeast rises?
So I apologize for the Facebook Live crew. We actually got an audience here that's not at the table, so we're just showing them the yeast real quick. And I'll take the yeast bowl back, if you don't mind.
yes.
So LaQuanta has a question.
Does it matter, like once the yeast rises, would it be an issue if I put my vegetables and folded them into the bread, or is that something that we should just only put on the top?
You can fold them into the bread, but when you start kneading the bread at the last knead, you can do that.
Okay.
But in this process, this is really early. Again, we just have water, we have our yeast, and we have our sugar. So there are other ingredients in the recipe that you want to add. So what it also asks for is some olive oil. So we're going to go ahead and add up olive oil. It also asks for additional water because the water amount that we put in here is not enough to support the amount of flour.
Okay.
And it also going to ask for some salt. Now what I normally do is take the salt. So here's my wet and here's my dry. I normally take my salt and add it to my flour.
Okay, so I'll also put it to the dry mixture. Okay.
So it asks for about 2 teaspoons of salt. I have in my hand some sea salt, but you're welcome to use regular table salt, kosher salt, Himalayan sea salt, whatever you have at home to make it work. And also I did not add all the sugar into the wet ingredients, so I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of sugar into the flour, and that just give it a little sweetener touch if you want. Now LaQuanta mentioned about herbs and vegetables. I do have some dry herbs here. You can actually take the dry herbs, mix it into the flour.
Okay.
Let's mix it up a little quick. And you can do this as well before you get to the kneading process. So again, I'm going to just take my dry ingredients and add them into my wet ingredients.
I believe so. Are we adding all of the ingredients, the dry ingredients from the bowl?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you can't see. So as you can see, I'm spooning in at one time. But yes, I'm going to add all the dry ingredients. Now, if you want, you could stop and stir this.
Because that was going to be my question. Do I just, because I'm always trying to do things quick. So if I just dump everything in at one time, is that going to affect the way my bread comes out, or should I just take your approach and take my time?
Well, no, I wanted to show you that the focaccia is a very forgiving bread. You don't have to, there's no wrong if you don't do the ingredients in the orders, in the order that is written. So as you can see, I added some flour. Now what I can do is just go ahead and dump the rest of the flour and or dump it all at one, give me 1 second, or dump it all at one time. And then you can still continue to mix with your spoon. And your question is? I'm sorry?
Do we have to add vegetables?
No, you don't have to add vegetables, but we're wanting to show you guys how simple it is to those that want to try vegetables to do it in a fun way.
Yeah.
And vegetables have a lot of nutrition and benefit for it. And then one of the good things about our kitchen here at the Englewood Community Kitchen, our focus is on health and wellness, to try to show you how you can improve your health by eating nutritious food, starting with vegetables. So we want to encourage you. So do you like tomatoes? Yeah. Well, okay, what vegetables do you guys like?
Carrots, celery.
You guys like broccoli?
We have some carrots. We have some.
Broccoli.
We have some tomatoes.
So you can actually use broccoli in your bread.
Okay. Ms. D had a question in the back. Go ahead, Ms. D. One moment.
So I want to know that if you don't add vegetables, then will that affect the taste, the flavor? Will it not be as flavorful?
I mean, as long as you put the herbs in it, it'll still bring out the flavor, or you could do it without, correct?
Well, actually, everyone, you don't even have to add the herbs. I just did this because LaQuandra wanted to know about adding vegetables. You can add vegetables and you can add herbs. You can do a variety of mixtures that you like. So to answer your question, it will still come out regardless. And we do have some with just the herbs on top. You'll get a chance to taste that today. So yeah, it would still be good. It would still be flavorful. But let me just share with you guys this too. The base of bread making is what we just did, and that is using nothing but water, yeast. You need water to get the yeast activated. Sugar, and you don't have to use sugar. Some people don't like it, so you can have a bread that has no sugar in it. So we got water, yeast, sugar, salt, and flour. Those are some essential ingredients that you have at home that would allow you to make bread. So again, to the question that was answered, you don't have to add vegetables, you don't have to add herb. You can just make a simple, plain focaccia bread. And it will taste delicious, it will be simple and everything. So what I'm gonna do now, as you can see, I just used a spoon to mix the ingredients together. Now I'm actually going to take my hand and put it on my flour board here, and I'm gonna knead the dough, and then the young ladies to my left are gonna pan it up, and we're gonna make the garden focaccia that you see, but we're gonna make it live.
You can come up and watch too.
Now don't forget if I did not tell you a step. So I have flour on my workstation, but what I do is now I have to knead the bread, and what I'm doing is folding the bread in and pushing it down. Fold it, push. And if I need more flour, if it gets too sticky, I can add it. So fold it and push. Fold it and knead. Fold it and knead. You can see it's sticking a little bit, which is okay.
So if it starts to stick, just as long as we keep adding additional flour, we should be okay?
You should, but caution though, more flour can make your bread stiff. So you don't want to keep adding a lot of flour.
Okay.
Just enough to get it work. And sticky dough is not bad.
Okay.
Sticky dough is not bad. Give me 1 second. Sticky dough is not bad. So again, it's fold and knead. Fold and knead. And there's no right way. Somebody do it with one hand. Somebody may like to do it with two hands. Let me just put some on my cutboard. Somebody may like to do it with two hands, like me. I just fold it, knead it. And you may want to do this for like 2 to 3 minutes. And this is a great activity for kids to do that don't mind getting their hand wet, especially those that like making slime. This is almost like slime. So it's a great activity. And if you notice, when I first took the bread out the bowl, it looked a little not so smooth. And once you knead the bread, it actually becomes a little bit smoother than what it was when you first started out. Okay. So what you do with this bread, and I will get to your question, we take the bowl that it came out of, and we want to put some oil in here. Also, olive oil is used in bread making for the focaccia. And I don't have to clean my bowl out. I'm going to get you. I can just take it. And you could clean the flour out, but it's not necessary. So I'm gonna take the focaccia bread, put it inside the bowl, And we're going to add a little bit more olive oil on it so it doesn't stick. And just a little, you can see it's not a whole lot. Smooth it around. This is going to get covered with a saran wrap or seal or a towel, and it's going to go into a warm place, like maybe next to an oven or away from any air or window, so that it can rise. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to move it fast forward. This is the bread that we're going to wrap. I'm going to move it back to the back. Hold on. I got to clean it up. Move it back to the back, and what I did earlier, I just got to clean my workstation, so give me a few minutes. So one of the good things about it, when you are cooking at home, always try to clean as you go. Because otherwise, at the end of it, you're going to have a lot of stuff to clean up. So it's easy to clean as you go. Thank you, LaQuandra. So imagine that bowl. Now, about 40 minutes later, you get this. This is my saran wrap that I put on the bowl. You can see, those that can see, it's a little bit oily so that it allows the dough not to stick to the saran wrap. And if you forget, it's okay. Just remove the dough off the saran wrap and you'll be good. So, again, I forgot. Notice that. Did you see what happened?
Yes.
So, when you're making bread, the yeast on this is called the first rise. When it rises, it activates the yeast, and then when you get ready to make your bread, people talk about punch it down. Everybody ever heard of that before? Punch your dough. So imagine that dough was like this, and you basically don't want to go bam, but you just want to punch it down like this to deflate the dough. So now you can work with the dough and make the bread that you want. Anybody see a big difference in the bread? It's not sticking, but also let me just go back and show you this. This was the dough before, and you can see how smooth it is afterwards. Now granted, this has herbs in it and this one doesn't, but still this is a little bit more softer, a little bit more smoother. So we're gonna let this rise as well. Not yet. But so this is ready to be panned up, and I'm gonna have your help in a minute. This is ready to be panned. So before we pan that up, I wanna talk a little bit about the pans. This is a cookie sheet. This is what they call a half cookie sheet, but those that don't have a half cookie sheet, don't worry, you can still make focaccia. And how you can make focaccia is that you can use any size baking sheet that you may have. And if this is the recipe, I doubled it, but to make this one, you can simply cut it. So the recipe will make a half pan. If you don't have this size pan, you can cut the recipe in half and make a smaller pan. Not only that, but I showed you this bread earlier that was a strictly herb. And most people, most moms may have what would you call this?
Yeah, I just call it like a little roasting pan.
Okay, roasting pan. So you don't have to have a cookie sheet. You can use a roasting pan, a meatloaf pan, lasagna pan, whatever you have at home. But keep in mind though that the bread will rise. So if you want a thicker bread, when you put in this pan, you can see it will be a little bit thicker. And if you put in a 1-inch pan, the bread may not rise as much because it's a shorter pan. So again, I wanted to show you that you have a variety of choices to put your pan in. Now, just like the bowl, we had to put oil in there. We also want to take our pan and rub it with some olive oil, or we can put some pan spray. So I normally do a quick pan spray around the edges so it doesn't stick. And then can you put some gloves on?
Put some gloves on, guys.
So now I'm actually going to take this yeasted dough that has risen and put it in the cookie sheet. And I have some junior chefs here that's going to help me create our flour focaccia. Our garden focaccia using the herbs that I cut up already. So we're going to do one at a time. So basically, to do your focaccia, this doesn't require you to do any fancy rolling of your dough or how would I say? Pacific pans is very forgiving, as I said earlier, and you basically take your hands and you just spread your dough onto the pan. So I'm gonna let my junior pastry chef, Leah, start with this. So if you can take your hands and just spread it out, and tell me your name? Michaela and?
You can just call me that.
Okay, well I got some junior chefs here that's gonna help me out. And I know Leah had made a comment earlier when she was doing the dough. What did you say earlier, Leah, what the dough was like?
I said it felt like slime.
Oh, and what else did you say? It felt what? Start with the letter G.
It actually feels really soft and squishy.
And she said it was good. It felt good to knead the dough, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great activity, moms and dads, for kids to do at home without them messing up your kitchen. It's again, okay, now can you let the two over here? Can you guys come and spread the dough out? Just take your hands. I want you guys to feel it so you can see what it's like. Just spread it and mash it. And then I want you guys to help Leah and create the vegetable garden. I'm going to help you as well.
It feels weird. A little bit.
It feels weird. How weird? But it feels good though, right?
I know it feels like soft, but it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like gooey yet, but it doesn't stick.
I know. So those that are in the audience, you can hear some of the comments that the junior chefs are making. But is it a good feeling though?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
It's just a little weird.
It's a good edible feeling.
Let's see. Okay.
Smell like bread?
It is.
So again, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. Can I show the audience, just keep your gloves on. Can I show the audience this? So audience, what we have is our focaccia bread, and you can see it doesn't have to be perfect, long as it's in your pan, and go from there. So what we're gonna do is take some olive oil, put it on top, and then I am going to just coat it with some olive oil so that when it bakes it's even more yummy and good. And one at a time, I would like a junior chef to create their own vegetable garden focaccia bread. So like for a few minutes, grab a couple of vegetables, maybe create a flower. And then LaQuanda, you can assist as well. And if you can slide over, Leah, yep.
Megan's calling.
We can end the video soon so that
Slide someone's
everybody
up.
can have a chance to make
Come on.
whatever you want. Yep.
So if my junior chefs can help
I have to make a
create this. No, you can do kind of like create a garden. You can create a flower.
Whatever you like.
You can create a bed. There's some carrots. Whatever you kind of imagine your garden to look like. And there's no right way, there's no wrong way, and just have fun with it. There's some bell peppers, some carrots, some zucchini, some squash, and what we're gonna do is have you guys do that, and then we're also gonna let anyone else that may want to help create our vegetable garden to come up and do it as well. So I thank you guys for joining us, but you can see how simple it is to make the focaccia bread that requires some basic essential ingredients that you have in your pantry, which is water, yeast, salt, sugar, and flour, and you can actually create your own bread. And I did not show the audience earlier the garden. Did I show them a garden focaccia earlier? Okay, so perfect. I appreciate you guys joining us for a quick garden focaccia demo, and we can have more going forward, and we can do other breads as well. But thank you for joining.
Bye.